Hey, look at this tweet from the United Kingdom's BBC state broadcasters from a show called BBC Breakfast. BBC News has unveiled BBC Verify to address the growing threat of disinformation and build trust with audiences through transparency. The BBC's disinformation correspondent, Mariana Spring, had more details on BBC Breakfast. Okay. Verify comes from the Latin word veritas, which means truth. Isn't all journalism about uncovering the truth, trying to verify it? Sometimes it's easy, like a sports score. Sometimes, it's subject to debate. But isn't all journalism about verifying things? How exactly is this different? Here, take a look at this video that accompanies this tweet.
Welcome to BBC Verify. Like you said, we are a team of investigative journalists here at the BBC. We are also a new brand, and we are a physical location above the newsroom in London. And the point of the team, as you said, is to verify video, to fact check, to counter disinformation, and to analyse really complex stories so we can get to the truth of what's going on. Why does this matter? Well, mistruths can cause really serious harm to society and to the people in them. And so we want to show you our workings and really help you understand how we get to the bottom of what's happening. And I'm going to give you a bit of a flavour of the kind of work that the team are doing. So we're able to look at maps to geolocate specific situations, stuff that's going on. This is just a map of central London where we are now. And this is New Broadcasting House, where I'm speaking to you from. And it's not so important perhaps for the centre of London, but it is when we're analysing war zones or what's happening in hard to reach places. And there's a story on the BBC website today. It's looking at Russian fortifications on the front lines in Ukraine, and you can read more about it there. And there are other ways that we also are able to interrogate what's going on, including on social media. I have some undercover accounts that I've set up for the BBC's Americast podcast, and we use these kinds of undercover accounts. These are the characters that the accounts belong to be able to really understand polarisation online and how what's happening on our social media feeds and what we're being recommended and pushed to us can affect all of us. And they don't offer us a totally exhaustive insight into what's going on, but they can help us understand just how social media works. And then there's also investigating other mistruths and the real world harm they can cause. At the moment, I'm investigating the UK's conspiracy theory movement. I'm trying to understand more about how it's evolved and intensified since the pandemic here in the UK. I'm looking at the alternative media that finds itself at the heart of this movement, and a conspiracy theory newspaper that's a part of that as well. I'm looking at the way that alternative media is funded. I'm looking at its impact on local communities. I'm looking at its connections with far-right figures and also its foreign links. That's for a podcast series that will be coming out in June. It's called Mariana in Conspiracy Land, and it will be available on BBC Sounds, Radio 4, asking that question, could January the 6th or a German coup attempt like we saw there ever happen here in the UK? So there's a real range of journalism BBC Verify will be doing, and you'll be able to see it online, on iPlayer, across BBC News, on your televisions and radio, so do look out for it.
Oh boy, there's a lot in there. Why is this team above the newsroom? Why isn't it part of the newsroom? Why isn't it just the rest of the newsroom? Now, I've met some BBC journalists. I like some, I dislike most. But imagine the hubris of this young lady saying she is somehow above the other journalists with her massive experience. So she will provide truth-telling abilities that, say, some 40-year veteran and some expert cannot. By using Google Maps, she says. Wow, looking at maps. By the way, do you trust this young lady to tell you about war zones by her ability to look at Google Maps? She's 27. And I looked her up. She has a degree in speaking French and Russian, which are interesting. But what exactly makes her an expert about anything other than, I suppose, the French and Russian languages? Why is she more senior than other BBC journalists who have actually, say, done war reporting? Wouldn't a war reporter for the BBC tell you better what the truth is than some social media TikTok star? She says that myths, truths, can cause harm, you see, and you can rely on her to identify that harm. The weird thing is that she immediately says she is deploying mistruths through fake Twitter accounts, fake social media accounts, and weirdly, all these undercover fake accounts are in America. This is the British BBC, but they're setting up fake accounts in the United States to be able to understand what's going on. So they're using deceptive tactics to fight deception. They're using inauthentic fakes to fight fake news, and they say this is to improve trustworthiness. By the way, it's against the terms of service of every social media company to set up fake accounts. That's just against the rules. They're breaking the rules. I don't know if we care about the rules of Facebook or Twitter, but this is exactly what the left and the BBC and the CBC and PBS say is foreign meddling in America. In fact, it's not just foreign meddling, it's a foreign government. The BBC is the state broadcaster. Now, did you hear what young Mariana had to say? That she will investigate the conspiracy theory movement. All right, well, what's she talking about? Is she talking about the conspiracy theory that Russia somehow colluded with Donald Trump? That was proven to be a conspiracy, but the BBC reported as the truth. How about the global warming theory that somehow people are causing the earth to bake and we only have 10 years left? And that theory was proposed 20 years ago. What about the various COVID hoaxes? And I'm not talking about skeptics, I'm talking about the government hoaxes, that the vaccine was safe and effective when we found out it wasn't very effective at all. You had to keep taking it, which isn't really a vaccine, is it? Or about the official hoaxes about the source of the vaccine. Are any of these conspiracy theories going to be assessed, or only the ones that the government doesn't like? She says she's going to look at funding for alternative media, but not the funding for the BBC, which extracts billions of dollars from British taxpayers. What does it matter how her competitors are funded? Is that really to get to the truth, or is that really to actually attack her competitors? And did you hear who she said she'd be looking at? The far right. Okay. But what about the far left? What about the green left? What about Extinction Rebellion? Is she going to look at Greta Thunberg? Who's funding her? Or how about Antifa? Or, I don't know, Islamic terrorism? Why are none of those things of interest to her? Only examining the right. Did you hear her mention January 6th? Do you even know what that is? Canadians sort of know. That's a great meandering, as it's called, where that one guy who dressed up like a Viking moose meandered through Congress. And yeah, they broke some windows and they trespassed, and I don't support them, but it wasn't really a riot. It was a meandering that was led by cops, and it was certainly agitated by FBI agents provocateurs. Remember this clip of an FBI agent, or at least an accused FBI agent, exhorting the crowd?
We need to go into the Capitol! Into the Capitol! What? No! Peacefully! Fed! Tomorrow? I don't even like to say it because I'll be arrested.
Well, let's not say it.
We need to go. I'll say it.
All right.
We need to go in.
Shut the fuck up, Boomer.
To the Capitol.
Base Fed posting? All right. We need to go into the Capitol. I didn't see that coming. Okay.
Monument Hill.
Stop speaking. We are going to the Capitol, where our problems are. It's that direction. Please spread the word.
Is that the conspiracy theory they mean? The FBI agent provocateur? Because I would watch that. But if this is just the BBC state broadcaster rehashing the U.S. Democrat line on about January 6th, how is that even interesting to Brits? Does 1 in 100 Brits care about Mariana's views about January 6th? Who is she? Well, she studied French and Russian, and she bounced around different newspapers. She's the ripe old age of 27, and she does both disinformation and TikTok. She sort of reminds me of Canada's Rachel Gilmore. You know, the one who said, should we even sit with our family at Christmas dinner? Remember that one?
Are you going to invite your unvaccinated relatives to sit at the dinner table with you this Thanksgiving? Experts are saying you might not want to risk it. Here's why. According to one expert from McMaster University, vaccines are super effective, but they're most effective when you're surrounded by other vaccinated people. If you invite someone who isn't vaccinated, there's a risk of having a breakthrough case. Now, breakthrough cases are pretty rare. There's only ever been about 8,000 in Ontario, but kids can't get vaccinated yet. So part of keeping those kids as safe as possible is telling that one uncle who chooses not to get vaccinated that he might have to sit this one out.
And like Canada's Rachel Gilmore, she has the same sense of victimology. She says that you're not allowed to criticize her. Let me read this tweet from her. After that first tweet went out, she was widely ridiculed. And she said this: I've been traveling for my next Radio 4 podcast, and brilliant to see positive response about BBC Verify. I've also been bombarded with abuse, misogyny, defamatory claims, misunderstanding my investigations into harm caused by mistruths and trolling. Here's a taste from past year. But I went to the tweet and there was nothing there. I don't know if she knows how to use social media. Well, I don't get it. She says, check out this post for a flavor, but a lot worse via message. No one should have to experience this level of abuse. I am not in charge of every bit of the BBC you don't like. I investigate the real world harm of what happens on social media. Disinformation, hate, algorithms. But what's she even referring to? And you see what happens so quickly here. If you clap back at her, if you mock her, or if you merely misunderstand her, she'll say that that's exactly what she's here to fight. People who misunderstand her and people who don't like her, people who are mean to her. That's nothing to do with the word verify, is it? It's about marginalizing and canceling people she doesn't like. She's showing what she really means by truth and untruth. She's just mad about opinions and expression of opinions, including rudeness. None of that has anything to do with Veritas. That was an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. I'm Ezra Levant. Every weekday, I do a monologue about the topic of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest either in studio or via Skype. And then I read your mail, whether it's fan mail or hate mail, which is sometimes even more interesting. This is on our premium service, though, called Rebel News Plus. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. It's $8 a month or less if you buy a whole year in advance. You get my show every weeknight, plus Sheila Gunn Reid's show every week. It's called The Gun Show. It's pretty amazing. You know, we rely on you because we do not take a dime from the government. In Canada, that makes us almost unique. So please help us out and help yourself to some great journalism at rebelnewsplus.com.